Okay, just give me 2 secs here. Okay, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, just give me 1 second, okay, just before I start. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Right, so as I mentioned earlier, the agenda for today is first, I'll just give you a brief overview about project one, what's the expectation, how it works, what you have to do in order to do well in project one, and the technologies that you will be expected to be familiar with in order to achieve what project one is asking. It will cover the things that you require from the first 3 weeks. Um, so it will be, for example, Docker will be part of it. Your ability to use GitHub, because you'll have to push your repo on there. You'll also need LLMs, and you'll need to be able to create a server that responds to endpoints. Something that you hopefully you've been doing a lot of recently with the various GAs. So, so that's the first part of the session. We'll talk about project one. We'll not go very in depth, but at some point, what will happen is after week three's, after some of the sessions this week are finished, then we will actually start working through an example of the workflow and the functions, sort of a hands-on approach we will be giving to how to do project one. So in case you're really finding difficulty with getting a sense of how it comes together, I strongly recommend you watch the sessions so that you get some good sense of how to build the project. Okay. So this is kind of similar to what we did in project two last term, where we had sessions that specifically walked you through some of the ways to construct the various bits of the project and put them together. Okay. So that's the first part. The second part of the session, we'll actually start with some week three content, because so far we have not really covered any week three content in the sessions. So we'll be dealing with how to use LLMs in terms of APIs, because that's where the real power of LLMs come through for this particular subject, and also just generally in industry. It's not the chat LLM that you're used to. It's something far more powerful that we will be able to show and demonstrate to you. Right. Any questions before we proceed? Any brief questions? Okay. Yes, Sakshi.
Sir, actually, I have a doubt in graded assignment for week one. So,
Okay.
can I ask it now?
I'll try and cover that at the end of the session if there's time. But what we'll do is we'll also have some extra sessions this week. And this is not firm yet, but what we're hoping is we can put out a video solution showing how you solve some of these assignments. So that might be helpful for some students. But in today's session, we'll try and cover these very specific things that we have set out. Okay. But towards the end, if there is time, we'll try and get to your doubt. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Actually, sir, I've posted at the discourse form also
Okay.
about the questions. Okay, I'll ask in the in last.
Okay. Sure. Sure. Great. Okay. Yeah, DeepSeek is in the news. So for us, it doesn't make much difference really, because the idea is still the same: how to use LLMs as an agent. So what we teach for over here with OpenAI will be something similar with Anthropic, will be similar with Copilot or any other AI that you would use. The workflow is similar. So what you learn here, even though we are going to use OpenAI, will be similar with most other LLMs that you would want to use anyway. But yeah. Okay. So the concept behind project one is they have some various sorts of so okay, the first thing is we are trying to create an automated continuous integration pipeline. Okay, what that means is there is going to be some data that comes into the company or into a server somewhere, and there will be lots of reports, there will be lots of other things. So there will be various things that data that comes in through a company, that this company does. Okay, data work solution, and what tasks they do with that all vary. Okay, but most of it is very routine sort of work. Okay, so normally you would have people sitting and doing these various tasks which are very how would I say it, very repetitive in some way. Okay, they're common tasks that people have to do. But what we want to do is we want to try and see if we can at least automate some of this process, so that we don't one thing, so that we reduce the errors in the task being done, and the outputs that come out are in such a form that you can do something very specific with them. Okay, what I mean by that is let's say day in and day out, this is a very simplistic example, but it gives you the idea. So let's say day in and day out, an invoice comes in, right? And the invoice is on a piece of paper. You're running a, say for example, a supermarket, and the milkman doesn't have a computer. He just gives you a little paper invoice, and he's written on there how many cartons of milk you've taken in, and what returns are there on there, if there are any returns, and he segregated it by various forms, and he's handwritten all this stuff. And this is a daily sort of process. You have to put it in, then you have to reconcile it to at the end of the month, because the dairy will require you to sign off on the accounts. So they will say, okay, here's the on our end, this is what our accounts team tells us. You have the receipts, you just have to reconcile them. So this is all very common types of tasks that are repetitive, but they are very different each time that you do it as well, right? So how do you automate this process, right? So this is the idea of a continuous integration pipeline, where data comes in from one end, some processing is required, and you get what comes out at the other end is something very structured that, say, you can then hand over to your accountant to manage for your business. Okay. So then the question is, okay, what kind of what is your job, okay, in the project? So first of all, your application is something that should run on a server, just like any web server would. And you would, when you type in this URL bar over here, you're actually sending a request to a server somewhere to fetch this page for you, right? So in the same way, you will create an API, and which will run this particular endpoint. The endpoint will have a run task or a read task. So you can see these are the two tasks it will have, or two capabilities that your API will have. So if you use something like Fast API, you can use, if you feel better with Flask, perhaps you can use Flask. What's important is this black box that you're creating. What goes in will be very specific. We have specified what that will be. What comes out also has to be exactly what we expect. We don't really care how the black box works. That is up to you to implement. Okay. Um, but these are the two endpoints that your server should react to: run and read. And then it has this query parameter that you give it, called task. And then this is a task given in plain English. Okay. So it may say something like, again, I'm using the simplistic example of a supermarket. It may say something like, collect all the delivery receipts from the milkman. It may say something like that. Okay. Um, and then your system is supposed to collate all this information, perhaps put it in a table or something like that. So that's what it should do. And when you run this task, it should, so every task that you run on a web server gives you a response. Okay. So then it tells you exactly the responses we expect. If it's successful, we have to get a 200 OK response. If it's unsuccessful, you have to say 400. And if it's unsuccessful because there is a problem in the agent, this is where you're using the LLM. So the LLM is actually messed up somehow. Then we have to return a 500. And then the body should contain some useful information that will help the whoever is running these tasks, or whoever is using your black box, that they may know, okay, some idea of what's happening. Okay. Same way with the read function. In the read function, what happens is it just gets the content of a specified file. So that's what this is supposed to do. And the reason for this is, what will happen is we will send a task, okay, to the run command. It'll do some work, but it's not giving you out a file. Okay. The way we verify it is, we will actually find out through the read, because the file will be internal to the server. So through the read, we will say, okay, we want to examine the contents of this file. That way we'll be able to verify, was the task that you sent through the post actually successfully completed or not. So those are the two things. Next thing is what kind of tasks you can expect to come to your project, okay, through this run command. Sorry, is it run? Yeah, sorry, run. Yeah, run command. Okay. So what kind of tasks your system should be able to handle? So in order to run the tasks, you should your black box or your project that you're running should be able to run applications using UE, and this is the particular application that it should be able to run. Okay, there is this URL given, and there is this py file over here, and using UV, it should run this datagen.py. Okay, and it takes one argument. Okay, which is this user email. So this is absolutely essential that it should do this, because this will end up generating the data files required for your server to process. Okay. And the reason we require a user email as an argument, in case you're wondering, is there will be some randomness generated in the data. Okay, so each student, there are 1,579 students registered on TDS. So each student will get their own randomized version of the data set. So no two data sets will be alike, and they use the user email as the seed for the randomness. So that's why this is required. And then of course for verification as well, so that we know this is your submission, etc. And the next thing is, you should be so this is another task that it should be able to run, which is it should be able to format the contents of this file, format.md. Okay, which is stored in this folder called data. Okay, so when datagen is run in your application, it will create these folders and files, and one of the folders and files that will create is this data folder and this format md. It will create data and dates.txt. It will create data and contacts.json. It will create data and logs. It will create data and docs. It will create data and email. All these files it will automatically create, And then one of the tasks is it should be able to format the contents of this format.md using Prettier 3.4.2, for example. That's one of the tasks. Yes, Ritik.
Carlton, I am seeing that in GA1, now that the submission is like the timeline is ended, the videos and all those questions are not showing. Can they show, because that's also good reference, right?
Yeah, okay. I'll inform Anand. I don't know why the videos are not showing. It might be that, but they will still be available on the tools in data science portal. Okay, like in this section over here. The videos are from this part only anyway. If you go through this, it'll be the same thing.
It's not
But
here
it's
only.
yeah. The videos are from here itself. So
Okay, nice. I actually just ended up directly doing the assignment, so I didn't see that.
yeah. I mean, this is actually the reason we did it this way is we have seen from past data that students actually directly go to the assignments. Okay, so they don't even view the content. So we thought a good way of delivering the content is to make it part of the GA itself. So that's why we use this new approach this time. So it's a unique
Yeah,
approach.
good approach.
Okay, so and this was again based on feedback that we got from students. So at the end of the term, we always require feedback because we want to continually improve this course, and we don't want to remain static like other courses in this program. So that's why make sure to give us feedback. Then we are able to improve it and make it better for others. Yes, someone raised their hand. Who was it?
Yeah, yes, sir. I raised the hand by mistake. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Right. So right. Okay, so we're talking about what tasks are required to be done. So a task that may be sent might say format the contents of this particular file, and it should be able to do that formatting. Okay, then it may, in plain text, it may say um, this file contains a list of dates, count the number of Wednesdays. So like that, there are several tasks here. I'm not going to enunciate all of these, but there are roughly 10 things your application should be able to do, and that's we call it phase A because there is another phase as well. Then what will happen is developers will call a run with the task description similar to the one above, and then they will uh, for example look at the files and see if they are getting the expected responses from it. So and here is an example. So task A3, right? So the dates .txt contains a list of dates, one per line, and it should count the number of Wednesdays. But then over here, if you look at it, it'll say a task. It may say this task. Okay, write the number of Thursdays in extracts.txt into extracts count, and it might be in some other languages. So your task is to build an agent that uses the LLM to parse the description of the task and execute the required steps. So that's what your job is. Okay, and like I said, these are the kinds of tasks that's expected to be performed. Next are what are called phase B, business tasks. So these are the requirements. So data outside this folder /data, okay, is never accessed or exfiltrated, even if the task description asks for it. So this is a security measure they want in place. Okay, that by no means data should be exfiltrated from the system. Now it may sound silly that this is here, but it's because an LLM is not like a human being, right? So you may be sometimes be able to convince it to do things that it's not supposed to do. So how do you robustly guard against that sort of situation? So this is one aspect of it. Second aspect, data should never be deleted anywhere on the file system, even if the description asks for it. And then these tasks are not precisely defined. Okay, this tests how intelligently you have created your system. is your system able to um, react to requests that it has not heard of before, right? So that's why these are vaguely worded. And if you look here, the business team has not promised to limit themselves to these tasks. So there could be additional tasks that they ask. Question is, how do you make your system intelligent enough to react to those responses and actually do something useful with it? Okay, but if you are able to handle it, you'll get a bonus for that. Okay, so these are broadly the things. This is a very well-defined tasks. These are less well-defined, and that's by design. Okay, so that it gets you a feel for how powerful LLMs can be if you are able to code them properly, able to construct them properly. Okay, what is required for the grading? So these are what we call the deliverables. Okay, you have to create a new public GitHub repository. Okay, so these words are important. It should be a public repository, not a private. It should have this license on it. So in previous terms, we've had this issue where students will not follow these directives precisely, and then they'll wonder why they've lost marks. Okay, that's because they just don't actually follow these things. They don't read what's written here. So please read very carefully what's required and follow it to the letter. Okay, write and test your code, call post task with a few tasks, and check that this gives you a read. So in other words, what we are saying is this should run. Okay, this post request with the slash run should work, and the get request with the read should work. Okay, so those are the two things that we saw up earlier over here. Those two things should work. Then you have to, it's not enough to make an empty repository, right? You have to push the code to it. Okay, so that's the next thing you have to do. Then this is very important. So just pushing the code is not enough. We don't want to build your application with all its dependencies and all that sort of thing. We want you to build a complete application. Okay, that should run anywhere. It should run in Mac OS, it should run in Windows, run in Linux without any issues. It should run wherever we want to stick it. Okay, the way that works is through Dockers. So you've been exposed to Docker in week 2. And so that's what you do. You create a Docker file that builds this application, okay, that you have created. Then push the Docker image to the Docker Hub. Okay. So the first part, this one, the repository, is to examine your code. The second part is to for us to be able to test your application. Okay. So that's the two parts to it. So push your Docker image to Docker Hub, and then ensure that it works. Okay, once you push it onto Docker Hub, you can check by running, podman run, give the name of your image, give the AI proxy token, and serve it to the API, and it should be able to produce this server. Okay, this is the server it should produce your Docker image. So if you remember, I think it was last session or not, I'm not sure. But in one of the sessions, Jivraj demonstrated how you can, for example, have a little Ubuntu system and how it's able to run some sort of services from it. It's exactly the same idea. Okay, your Docker should basically be able to run this server at localhost 8000 and be able to do the tasks of the API. Okay, but these are the parameters that have to go into it. We'll discuss this in more detail in upcoming sessions. Okay, so don't be afraid if you see this right now. For now, you just worry about this first part. That itself will be plenty. Okay, get your application actually running. That itself will be a big task. Then we will deal with how do you push it to Docker and how you get it running from there. And last but not the least, I hate that phrase, but nevertheless, submit it in Google form. Okay, we won't know what your repository is unless you actually give it to us, right? So don't forget to submit the Google form. It's in fact over here. So if you just, if you see, this is actually a link. This is the form. Please don't forget to do that. Otherwise, you will not get any marks. And what you need in the Google form, obviously, you need the repo name and also the image name on Docker. Okay, so it has to follow this format. So please do that. So there are some useful notes. Don't actually put your token in here, okay? Because then someone can steal your token. And more significantly, we can't then use your application then is tied to your token. How will we test it? We don't want to use your token for testing it, right? We will use our token. So use this environment variable. Okay, we'll show you how to use environment variables. But I'm mentioning it now. And this is a good tip. You use this line of code in your Python script, os.environ air proxy token, and in your script, then it will pick up the token from the environment. Okay. In order to use the OpenAI LLM, it's being done through a proxy, and each one of you will be able to get a $1 limit. It's renewed every month. So at the beginning of February, you will get a fresh set of usage limits. So in other words, you'll get $1 at the end of, at the beginning of February. But try to avoid exceeding this limit. So one of the things we'll talk about today is how to carefully construct your queries so that you don't have, so that you don't unnecessarily use up the limit rapidly. Next thing is, oh, by the way, just so that you guys are aware, all IITM students, that includes the BS students, now have access to Perplexity AI. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's free for 1 year, the pro version of it. So
how do we get access to it? Do we use our email ID?
Yeah, you have to use your email ID that you get from, which you use for your course. So, if it'll be at ds.study.iitm or something like that, right? You use that email ID when registering for Perplexity, and you will get the pro version of it free for 1 year. So it's very capable. It's very competitive to OpenAI, and it's very competitive to Claude and Anthropic as well. And it has voice recognition. You can upload images. You can do virtually a lot of things with the pro version, and you get it for free for a whole year. And the reason that is because the CEO of Perplexity is an ex-alumni of IITM. So he's as a goodwill gesture, he has given all IITM students free usage of the pro version for 1 full year. So make good use of it. Okay. Okay. Next thing, right? So as far as your application goes, you have to still use the proxy. Okay. So be very careful with using it, and you have to use GPT-4o mini, not anything else in your application. Okay. Keep your prompt short and concise. Okay, this is actually very useful for you. I know it comes under note, but when you run, when you operate these API endpoints, it must complete within 20 seconds. Okay. So the reason is, some of you may come up with some really fancy, clever loops. Okay, and we don't know how long it's going to take, right? If it takes like 30, 40, 50 seconds, we don't know. So at some point we have to make a cutoff. If 1,500 students submit their projects, then for us to evaluate it will take days. Okay, I mean, last term there were 679 project submissions, and it took us, I think it was 4 or 5 days with the server running 24/7 to evaluate all of them, because it was not evaluated manually. Okay, all these are evaluated automated. So that takes quite a lot of time and processing power. And if you are waiting 20 seconds for each one of those completions, you know, it will, we might as well wait till the end of the term to evaluate your project. So please keep it within, make sure it runs within 20 seconds. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. Evaluation. Okay. So this is how evaluations are going to be done. So they've used task A2 as an example. So we will run this command, okay, from our end. So in other words, you also should be able to run this command from your end. And then we will call this. So what this does is it will fetch the Docker image, your application from Docker, which you have uploaded to Docker, and it will start the application. And that application will start a server. That server will be serving on port 8000, and it will be ready to respond to calls made to the to that server. So the first call we'll make to that server is this one. Okay, this is an example. Okay, I'm not saying this is exactly what we're going to do, but this is an example of how evaluations are going to be done. So here they will. So this is a task you can see here. Format data with prettier 3 point whatever. Okay, fine. Then we have to get a HTTP 200 response because you know, it's a pretty straightforward task. We expect it should work. And the task may be worded differently. Okay, so if you've seen here, it's a bit strange how this is structured. It doesn't quite say it like this, right? Instead, it says it like this. But you get the idea. Format this file with prettier 3.4.2. But your agent should be intelligent enough anyway to be able to understand what's being asked. So we'll explain how do we actually achieve this. Okay, it's not as difficult as it sounds. Then the next part is we'll call the read endpoint. So this was the run endpoint. This is the read endpoint, and then we will check and see if we get the contents of the file changes or not to what we expect it to do. And that's what we do. We verify it. So we will get a file out of your server, and then we will run a script that actually prettifies it and see if the two are exactly the same. So then we know, okay, your application is running fine. So this is an example of how an evaluation will be done on your project. So this is with just task A2. So we will obviously do them with all these tasks and with a mix of some of these tasks as well. And then how we score. So that's how we evaluate. This is how we will score. Your repository must have the following criteria to be eligible for evaluation. So this is not even getting marks. Okay, in order to be eligible for evaluation, you have to, these things must be completed. So GitHub repository exists and publicly accessible. GitHub repository has a license file with MIT license. GitHub repository has a valid Docker file. Docker image is publicly accessible and runs via this command. Docker image uses the same Docker file as your GitHub repository. Now, one thing I'll mention before we move forward, this word publicly accessible, it doesn't have to be publicly accessible while you're developing it. Okay, you can keep the code secret if you like. That's not a problem. Just make sure that when it comes time to actually getting it submitted, at that time you have to make it publicly accessible. Okay, but before then, if you want to work on it secretly, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Okay, but just make sure that these are absolute prerequisites. If any one of these fail, your project will not be evaluated. Okay. Phase A gives you 10 marks. So project is totally out of 20. So each of the tasks that it completes in phase A, you will get a mark for it. Each of the tasks it completes in phase B will get a mark for it as well. And again, it's the same way. Okay, run and read, run and read. But the tasks, obviously, these are well-defined tasks, so this should be easy to implement. These are a little more work is needed on those. Okay. Bonus, additional tasks. So we may pass additional tasks beyond the list. If your code handles them correctly, you'll get 1 bonus mark per task. Now, I'm not at liberty to say how many bonuses you may get, but that's something to keep in mind. If you're going by previous terms criteria, in project 2 last term, which was also using LLM agents, I think there was something like 12 bonus marks on offer. So it was huge. Okay. But I think the highest score last term was something like someone managed to get 7 or 8 out of the 12. Okay. But it's worth it. If you can get this going, that's, that may compensate for anything you might have lost up here. Code diversity. We give bonuses for code diversity. So we encourage you to learn from each other. But we also are quite happy for you to have diverse code. To get bonus for, if your code is not similar to someone else's, of course, we will reward that. But if yours is very similar to someone else's, then you will not get bonus marks. So we don't penalize you for copying. Okay, we want you to learn. That is the key purpose of this course, because what you learn here will be very valuable for you in your future career. So, but part of learning is 2 things. One is struggling with it yourself, but also looking at others who have done and using the ideas that they've come up with, and then making them your own in a way. In one sense, once you get an idea, oh, this is how you execute this this task, then you can perhaps find a better way to iterate through it, or you may find a more efficient way of dealing with it, or whatever. But at least you've learned something in the process. So we don't penalize the fact that your code might be similar, but we will give you bonuses if yours is like unique. The score will be the sum of the marks above. There will be no normalization. So in other words, if you get 22 out of 20, you will get 22 out of 20. so yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Project is a place where you can get a whole load of marks. You've been given 4 weeks to at least get started on it, and it is well worth it. Okay, any questions at this point? So this is a brief introduction to project and what is expected. Any questions, particularly around the deliverables or evaluation or any of these things?
Will there be any support in case the person who is not very well versed with all those things like Git repository?
Yes, yeah,
And
you will definitely, yeah, we will try and provide you as much support as is possible for us to do. You will get support, yeah. And also, in future sessions, we will actually go through a working prototype, so that you will have an idea of how to build your own. Someone raised their hand. Who was it? Anyone else? Okay. Okay, great. So,
Sir, excuse me.
yes, who's this?
Sir, I'm Ulagavurian, sir.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Ullah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sir, whatever you explained, it's rather, I just want to be frank with you. It's Greek and Latin for me. But actually, I'm basically from accounts and finance.
Okay.
I don't understand anything.
Okay.
So could you kindly, at least, present a model project and then explain, things step by step so that I can understand better.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to be doing in the sessions in the future. We will actually be working through a working prototype of. We will actually be building the prototype of the project, so that way you will have a sense of what's happening at each stage.
because you talked of that GitHub, and then pushing that code, etc. And in fact, actually, in that GA1, there was one question, it was a simple code. I was trying that, but I couldn't do that.
Right.
So I'm very much frustrated, to be frank with you. So unless you try to help me out, otherwise, I'm frustrated to the point of even dropping the course. So it's because I'm just trying to build up something without any foundation. There's no foundation at all. I do not know how are we going to build up on that. It's very sad.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a note of it and see what we can come up with regards to helping someone in your position. So, do you have any programming experience at all? I mean,
no,
do you know
not
Python?
at all, sir. In fact, actually, I had done long back. But that was in Fortran. That was about long back.
Fortran, yeah. That is 40 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Don't have. But of course, I worked on Oracle, RDBMS, etc. But so I know that interface, whatever that works, But what's going behind, I do not know.
Okay.
So,
have you managed to watch any of the sessions that were conducted before this?
Yeah. In fact, actually, I went through some of them. In fact, actually, I listened to that this thing, the tools. That first week, I could do that.
Okay.
But certain things I could do, but rest of the things, and in fact, actually, that Bash I could do, but the GitHub I couldn't do.
Okay, what we'll do is, again, we'll have to see if time permits. What we'll try and do is maybe have a specific session for people who are struggling with very specific things. Like, so for example, you are struggling with just getting Git working. So if you are struggling with Git, you will not be able to do project because
that's what, because we explained it, that's to be the prerequisite, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what I was worried.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, when we are doing project, we will also create a repository. So you will be able to see how we go about doing it. That at least will give you a sense of, see, all the things in project are from first 3 weeks only. It's not touching anything from weeks that are coming up ahead. So if you're thorough with the first 3 weeks, you will easily be able to do project one. It's not that challenging. So only thing is, the difference is there is a knowledge gap. There's a knowledge gap between where you are and where you ought to be. That's all. There's nothing else. I think you're very capable because obviously you have exposure to programming. You have a good logical sound mind. If you're doing accounts, you should have a very good sense of logic and numerology and be able to do all these things. So I have full faith that you will be able to handle it. Only thing is there is some knowledge gap. That's all. So we will try and address that knowledge gap while we are working through the project. So we will start at the very basics. We'll set up the repository. We will go through these requirements and then start building the application itself or each of these tasks and take you through the project. And I think even if you at least attend those sessions, I think you will have a good grasp of the end-to-end what is expected. See, so far, first 3 weeks, they were all sort of disparate tools, okay? In other words, you don't know why you're studying them. So it also affects motivation when you don't know why you're doing it, right? So the attempt of project is to tie all these things together to show you something that actually is useful. And in fact, the head of operations was making a joke with Professor Anand where he was saying, are you planning to replace our work in operations with this project? So, but this is the whole point of project. It's to tie these concepts that seem disconnected from each other, and put them as a nice cohesive whole, and let you see how actually it all fits together. So I think if you stick around for those sessions, even if let's say for example you find it challenging and you decide to drop the course, I still would suggest you to join the project sessions or watch the project sessions so that you will at least learn how it comes together. Okay.
No, right away. I'm not going to drop it. I'm still going to try for it.
Okay.
But of course, it all depends. That the support you are going to give me. And that.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Okay.
thank you very much, sir, for
Yeah.
your kind words.
No worries. Okay, Karishma, you have a question?
Yes, sir, I have a problem.
Okay.
Sir, is there any possibility to change the time of the session? Because, sir, all the classes are clashing with each other in the calendar, and I have told to Mayur, sir, but no response uh, regarding the other subject has
Okay.
kept.
When you
So,
say sessions, which particular session you're specifically referring to? I mean,
sir,
because
TDS
no,
session, because uh,
I was saying there are different
other,
times, right, and different days. So,
yes, sir, like in the Thursday, I am clashing with the time. Same time, three sessions are there, live
mm-hmm.
sessions,
Yeah.
like MLF, MLT, and then TDS.
Yes.
And on Wednesday, there is a live session 9 to 10, and live session TDS of 9 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
MLF and TDS. And same with Saturday. There is a TA session of not Saturday, on Tuesday. No,
Okay.
no, only Thursday and Wednesday.
Thursday and Wednesday. So the Wednesday one
Yes.
absolutely cannot be moved, unfortunately. The Thursday one, it may be possible to move it, but one of the reasons the sessions have been kept in the evenings is, many people are working during the day or have other responsibilities during the day. So that's why they are generally kept in the evenings. But we record all the sessions. So that way you're able to view them later. But I
Sir,
understand, like, if you have a doubt and you want to immediately ask, you're not able
exactly,
to.
sir.
Yeah. So I definitely understand that issue. Um, we will try. I mean, I don't know when else can we schedule. I mean, it would have to be maybe
Sir,
doubt
in
clearing
the
sessions. We could have to perhaps schedule it, say, earlier in the day, maybe. Yeah. But again, I don't
yes, sir.
know how many people will turn up for those. I mean, it would be no good if only two people turn up, right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
So
So
actually, this problem happened with same every classes. Like I
hmm.
have requested a majority wins. So I don't know to whom I request or to whom I
Yeah.
not.
Okay. I'm willing to be flexible. What I'll do is we'll trial a session at an earlier time for maybe Friday. Okay. No guarantees at the moment. I have to discuss it with the other team members also. So this time works for you, 5 to 7.
Friday there is no session, sir.
Sorry.
Friday there is no session.
Yeah, at the moment there isn't, but we add sessions as required also. So if we need to
So
add, we
that,
can add.
yes, sir. In between 2 to 6, I'm okay. 1 to 6, or
Mhm.
even in the early morning before 11,
I
I'm
see.
okay.
Okay. Any thoughts from others? I'd like to hear what others also have to say.
Sir, I request you to please keep the session on the evening itself, uh,
Yes,
because in the
sir.
morning I am having classes. I'm doing dual degree, and
Okay,
I know many of my friends are also doing so.
sure. Yeah, I think what we'll
I'd
do,
like to inform
perhaps,
my side.
is if you're keeping an early session, it'll be mostly for doubt clearing. But if you're doing these sort of sessions where we are actually going to be teaching something, then we'll keep them in the evenings. Does that sound like a reasonable compromise?
Yes, sir.
The thing is, Carlton, like whenever the class is at least one or the two people will have a conflicting schedule.
Of
Why?
course.
Because my shift starts at 2 and ends at 11.
Right.
So now, since I'm working work from home, because of that only, I'm able to manage.
Mm-hmm.
But
2 to 11, is it? So
yeah,
afternoons till nights. Okay.
yeah.
So one thing you can do, you can take two doubt clearing session if you have time, and you can put one of them in the morning and one of them in the evening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but well, we'll have to see what resources we can manage for that, right? So this is not the only thing that we have, right? So we'll try. Okay, I've taken. I'll take it. Take the feedback from others and discuss with the team. And my goal is to help you as much as possible. Okay, in the best possible way. So I'm not ignoring what you guys have said. But we will look into it, okay, and see what can be done.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Right. So there's Ati Manas. Ati Manas, yes, please.
Carlton, this question is mostly for Jivraj, I guess, as
Okay.
he's handling the learning sessions where they teach us about the contents from the GA.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't
mean,
mostly attended the last few sessions, but would like
yeah.
to know if the week 3 contents have started yet.
So I'm supposed to start week 3 today, but I wanted to at least go through project 1, which is what I covered in the earlier part of the session. But I'll be starting with week 3 as soon as these doubts are done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right. If there are no more questions, let's get started with week 3. Okay. So, how many of you have watched the videos for week 3? Or at least gone through these notebooks that are there? So there are these Google Colab notebooks that have been provided for week 3. Have you all at least had a look at them? Okay, no. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Just give me 1 second while I just get set up then. Okay. Just give me a couple of minutes and I'll be back. Okay. Thanks for waiting. Right. Okay. I hope the screen is visible. So the first thing is we're going to talk about what what actually LLMs are about. Okay, I know it seems like a trivial subject. Most of you are familiar with the flashy cousin of LLM, which is the chat capabilities and things of that nature. But LLMs fundamentally, they are large matrices, okay, that have in them vectors. These vectors represent, I would not call them words, they contain tokens. And these tokens in an LLM are a multi-featured vector. So I think, for example, OpenAI's model, each of their tokens contains 1,500 and something like something of that order. Okay, about 1,500, 1,600 features, and so that's what represents every single token. So a token could be a full word, or it could be a small little word. So I mean, it could be even this dot could be a token, for example. Okay, and each of these are represented by a vector that has 1,600 dimensions, and this all sit in a matrix or matrices. And whenever you type something into an LLM, or when we make an API call, as you will see now, the words that you type into the LLM, or the image that you're sending to the LLM, or the sound that you're sending to the LLM, they get converted into these tokens. Okay, and then once they are tokenized, then the LLM looks at the order in which these tokens arrive, and then that's where the magic happens. Then they transform. Okay, that's why they're called transformer models. They transform what you have given into another set of tokens, which are sent out back towards you as a response. So all they're doing are matrix transformation. So if you've done MLF or MLP, you will understand what these terms mean, or even if you've done maths too. They are basically matrices that are doing transformations. They're working on a vector and moving them or transforming them in some way. And then you're getting a result from it. So that's what at the heart of LLMs are. So they're not really intelligent, in other words. So this idea that LLMs are like have sentience and are, have some innate intelligence in them, that's completely nonsense. Okay, it's completely mathematical. There is nothing intelligent in that sense about it. It's very deterministic in some ways. There is some randomness in there, but that randomness is not from intelligence. That randomness is just because of the way the models are structured. Okay, so that's a general idea of what LLMs are. So there are some other core concepts that are important to understand also. So before I talk about those concepts, we'll just start with a simple, what do you call for it, a simple example, okay, of how to make an API call to an LLM. The reason why API calls are powerful is because you can use them in your programs, okay, and that's where the real power of LLMs come through. So first of all, to use an LLM, you need an API key. So do you all know how to get your API key? Have you all managed to get it? Yeah. Can someone say yes, no?
No.
Okay. So if you go to this section here, large language models, right? On the, is my screen visible? I'm not entirely sure.
Yes, Carlton, your screen is visible.
Okay. So if you go here and on this first intro page, if you read it, right, it will show you this link. Okay. This, if you go to this link, it will take you to this GitHub page. This is the AI proxy that we will be using, and this is where you get your free allowance. Okay. I'll be demonstrating all our applications using this because ultimately for the project you will require this itself. But you can use something similar for other LLMs of your choice. Okay, but you will have to read their documentation to know how to implement those. So if you go here, at the very top, you will see this link over here. This is where you get your proxy token. Okay, if you go in here and you open that link, you will get this sign in. sign in with your IITM Google account, and you will get a proxy token. Copy that proxy token, and you will then be able to use it in your API. Okay. So I've already stored the proxy over here, the proxy token. So I'll just run that now. And then the next thing you will need is you need a URL, okay, to contact the LLM. So this is basically an API call. This is same like your Fast API, except this is on the internet. Okay. So when you are setting up Fast API or Flask, you're doing the exact same thing, which is you're setting up an internet, service provider that responds to a URL. That's what you're setting. So you got, you may be asking where you get this URL. It's in the same documentation that I showed you here. If you look over here, this is the proxy you need to use. Okay. And depending on what you're trying to achieve, you will use different things. So say, for example, you want to find out about the various models that are available via this proxy. So in case you don't understand what a proxy means, so OpenAI provides the service we are using, okay? But you don't interact directly with OpenAI. Why? Because you're not giving your credit card details. You're not giving your, you're not paying for the usage of it and things of that sort, right? So you have to purchase tokens from them, give your details to them. So instead, Anand has purchased, I don't know how much, but some amount of tokens from OpenAI, and he distributes the usage of it via what's called a proxy. So it stands in place of OpenAI. So it's in between you and OpenAI. So you send a request to one of these endpoints, which is on his server, and then this server takes your your AI proxy token and sends the request to OpenAI without you having to have bought anything from them. So basically, this acts as a middleman. So that's what a proxy is. So that's what this is. Okay, you can think of it as a
Please
middleman.
explain this again, because for this week 3 assignment, I'm sorry I joined right now.
Okay.
I have like 5 problems I solved it, but all 5 my account quota has exceeded. It is saying so.
Oh,
I'm
right.
finding
Okay.
problem with.
I mean, have you used it before? And it said
Which
exceeded.
one? Like normal account I have, OpenAI. I solved
Oh,
all
okay,
the
okay, okay.
problems, but actually I'm not able to like fully answer it. Like,
Okay, okay. I mean, normal OpenAI, excuse me, a normal OpenAI account normally only is a subscription service, right?
no, they give free things. Actually, OpenAI. I did
Okay.
subscribe to it. I was hoping actually like maybe I can use those model IDs.
Okay.
But
No. That
yeah.
what? So I'll explain that. So if you are in the subscription model for OpenAI, they don't give you access to the API.
Okay.
Okay. You can't use the API.
Okay.
You can only use their web-based
Yeah. It seems so.
subscription.
Yeah.
If you
Only
want
this
to use their
Hugging Face
API,
is that like I hope actually these guys had used Hugging Face or something like that. Then
okay.
I could have used it.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
you have to buy tokens if you want to actually use their API. So
Uh-huh.
that's how it works with OpenAI. So
Mhm.
that's why you're not able to use it. So
Yeah.
that's let me just get just give me 1 second here.
Yeah, if you can show me a way how to do that, or if you want, I can share you my screen. Like actually, like.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Because I'm going to show how to access
Yeah, that would be better.
access it via the proxy. Okay,
Mhm.
because that's how your all of your projects are going to have to work.
Okay.
It will have to work via the proxy anyway.
And also that ninth statement, ninth question in that, it is saying like we need to access something else actually through IIT thing, and then we have to pay some money, or I don't know. I didn't go ahead with that actually. Like if you can.
No. There's no need to pay money for
The
anything.
ninth one actually, like can you click on ninth one?
Ninth one, prompt engineering. Yeah.
Yeah, I have found out the prompt actually, like how to say yes.
Okay.
But for that to do, actually, right, it is asking for this AA proxy. When you click on that, it is saying actually like maybe you have to use it so many number of times actually, like or something like that. Actually, like I didn't use it even once. It generated the key, but I didn't use it. So I'm not sure if we can go ahead with that or.
Okay. Anyway, we'll come back to this a bit later.
Yeah,
okay?
and also like I have one more question on
because
this.
we'll have at least three sessions before this GA3 is due.
Oh, I see. I thought actually the day is this weekend. So
yeah, it is this weekend, but we will have 3 more sessions at least before that.
oh, I see. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And one, okay, so this is one. The other 4 variations were like actually only on this one. Actually, what is that? Quota exceeded. And one more is like the third one. Actually, like that text box doesn't appear. So there is that. Actually, I think there are some extra CSS identifiers. Actually, I had to remove. Then actually the text
Yes,
started
this one,
appearing.
correct.
And once the text started appearing, right? Actually, like I generated that. You don't have to create a key for that, but I generated the JSON for that. But I'm not sure if for some reason it is taking it or not. Actually, like, because I've almost got the same thing text area as good as for the other
Yes.
other source code. It's the same actually, like for element by element, actually the same class CSS
Correct.
elements and also the same. But I don't know, for some reason it's not taking it actually. Like, so should I have to refresh it, or like I just want to check with that? That's the third one actually, which I had.
Okay. Yeah, we'll cover it in another session, okay? Because I at least want to get started with this.
Yeah, sure.
Using the
If you're
proxy.
free, actually, like maybe after, like once this is done, like I can come in the extra time. I can log in back, and then that would be okay. If you have
we'll see, okay?
no issues, no issues. And one last thing is actually like I joined last week back. Actually, like there was a statement that there will be a debrief session on the project. I couldn't get any debrief session video. Is there any debrief which happened?
Yeah, so we at the beginning of this session we talked about what the requirements for project one is.
Okay,
so
okay, I'll check that out. Okay.
When we upload this video,
Yeah, sure.
probably in a few hours time or early tomorrow
Sure,
morning,
no issues.
you can watch and you will be able to get that.
Please continue. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
So just give me 1 second here. Okay, so just to, I think someone was asking what this was. So here's the AI proxy, right? This is your computer here, and this is okay, OpenAI, and so in order to use their service, either you can subscribe directly, okay, but this subscription service does not give you access to their API, okay, which I think you pay $20 per month for. Okay, so don't think I'll subscribe, I'll get access to the API. That's not what they give you. What they give you is access to their web-based model with the $20 subscription. Instead, if you are ever planning to use their API, which is what we are going to use, which is very powerful, you have to actually buy the tokens, okay? And when you buy these tokens, then you get charged not per month. Let's say, for example, you, for argument's sake, you bought $10 worth of tokens. You can use this in 1 year if you want, or you can use this in 1 day if you want, right? It makes no difference. This is like basically like pouring petrol, okay? How quickly you use it is up to you. So that's the difference, and it's completely based on your usage. So we'll see in a moment. I'll just demonstrate to you in a moment how many tokens it takes to send a request. So you'll get a sense of how quickly or how slowly you use them up. Okay, so that's if you're doing it directly through OpenAI. Okay, so remember, subscription does not give you access to their what do you call it, their API. Okay, it only gives you access to their web-based service. The other nice thing about their API service is if you got tokens, you get access to not just their GPT model, their the 4.0. You get access to also Whisper, which is their audio model. You get access to DALI, okay, DALI 3. You get all access to all these if you're buying tokens. But if you're buying the subscription, you don't get access to all these. You only get access to their web-based chat completion system. Okay, you cannot, for example, generate images and things of that sort. At least not that I'm aware of at the moment. But through the tokens, if you're buying tokens, you get access to all these things. So how many of you have seen the new logo for tools in data science on YouTube? I'm hoping at least someone has noticed. So I generated that by making an API call to OpenAI, okay? And I used DALI 3 for that, okay? I just used the tokens and asked it to create one for tools in data science. So
it's very good that DALI 3 allows for commercial and and we are not doing commercial use though.
yeah, so that's an example of what can be done. Now the problem is, of course, you'll have to buy these, or you'll have to use a credit card, because I don't think they accept debit card. I'm not sure. And the other thing is it's in US dollars, so it's not in Indian rupees. You will have to pay a conversion charge.
You can use.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, actually, I was giving some information, but I don't think it is right. So
okay, yeah. So there are some difficulties, okay, for people who want to spend dollars from their Indian accounts. So so that's something that you might have to be aware of. So instead of that, right, we have provided you this middleman, okay, or rather I should say Anand has provided you this, which is he's got a server of his own. He has bought the tokens, and what he has done is he's through this site I showed you just now. You are able to then generate your own key, okay. Now the difference is you can't use this key directly with OpenAI, okay, because OpenAI does not recognize this key, okay. It doesn't even know it exists. But this key is what you use with his server, okay. He has generated this key. He gives you this key. You communicate, okay. You send your OpenAI request, right, constructed in a very specific format with the key, and then on your behalf he communicates with OpenAI, and then it sends a response back to you, to the proxy, and then the proxy responds to you, okay. So that's how this workflow happens. So is there any questions at this point? If there's no questions, then
No, Carlton.
okay, then I'll get back to where we were. Share screen. Okay. Right. Okay. So now that you know we need the key and you know how to get the key, the next thing is you need to use these endpoints that he has created. Okay, you can't use the one that OpenAI gives you, because as I've just explained, you have to use his proxy instead. So here's one endpoint, yeah, in order to use the proxy. So this works the same as chat completion, so that's why that's what it's called. And this is the only model that is actually available to you. So that's the GPT 4.0 mini. Okay, so we'll put that in here. Okay, so that's the URL. The next thing you need is some headers. So any request that you send on the internet requires, of course, the URL, but also requires some headers to work. Now, when you type in your browser window the URL, you don't see this headers part, but your browser is actually sending some headers of its own. Okay, it's sending information to the server, like where it's from, what is the browser that is being used. All sorts of little bits of information are going from your computer apart from the URL. but that is automatically filled by the browser. But because we are using a program to access this endpoint, we are now using the headers. We have to provide the headers as well. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay, because this is the way how normally the communications across the internet work, and how TCP/IP and all these things, which we will not talk about now, is involved in this process. So one of the headers that you have to give is called authorization. Okay. And if you look at the documentation, it shows you here as well. You can see it over here, authorization, right? So this will be in the form of a dictionary key value pair. So authorization, and then you have to put your token over here. So I'm using an F string, okay, because I've already put the token in a variable. So bearer, put the API key, and yeah, that should be it. So we got the URL, we got the headers. Next thing is for now I'll just type this over here and leave it as is. The third thing we need in order to access the API is what we are going to send to the endpoint. Okay, and this endpoint at its very basic level, first of all, requires the model. Okay, so what model are you using? There are many models on the server. Your key has only access to the GPT-4o model. Sorry, GPT-4o mini actually. Mini. Okay, so that's one thing you need to put in there. The next thing is you need to send it some messages. So this is the messages that you will be sending. Messages, as the name implies, is an array. So there are several things that could be sent, several messages that could be sent. For our purposes, for a basic communication with the LLM, we will first of all give it a role. Okay. And this, if you're wondering why, it's a requirement of how this proxy is set up. Okay, so role and content is required. So the role I've given is what the system role is, which is, in other words, the OpenAI's role. And so we'll say your role is to, let's say, identify the sentiment of.
So this is what is called a system prompt.
Yeah, this is a system prompt. You're effectively saying that this is the role it should do. Okay. So I'll say, just say positive, negative. I mean, this could be anything. Okay, I'm just using a very simplistic example. Okay. Something else I was going to mention, but I'll demonstrate it a little bit later. For now, I'll leave it as is. Then the next role is, okay, what role we are playing in this, which is the user role. We are going to provide it the content. Okay, we have given the role to the system, but now we need to provide it some content, right? So this is where I'll use our variable. Okay, so here we will put some sentence. Any of you want to volunteer a sentence for me?
Please help in solving the TDS project.
Patience is virtue.
Please solve in help in so please help in solving. Sorry, in solving the TDS project. Okay, right. So that's our content. What am I missing? Am I missing a comma? Oops. Okay, that's fine. So that's the payload that's ready now. The next thing we need now to do is we need to send the request. So we use the request library, and something that's always useful, although we don't need it for this request, I'll just put it here anyway. We need to use JSON quite often because most of our communications is via JSON. In fact, I should say all our communication is via JSON. So requests dot, and this is a post request. So if you look at the our documentation here, this is a post request. There's another kind of post request you can use. That's for embeddings. We'll get into that a bit later. And there are get requests. So this one is this chat completion is a post request. So request dot post, and then you need a URL, which we have. You need the headers, which we have, and we need JSON payload. So these are required keywords, okay, in this request. And right, so if I run this now, it will start sending a request to the OpenAI server. That's why it took 5.7 seconds to execute. Right. So the first thing I want to tell you, which is very important, don't write your request code in a big block of code that you need to debug, because each time you need to debug, it will keep hitting the request. Okay. And can anyone tell me what happens when you keep on doing this over and over again when you're debugging?
A lot of time consumption will happen, which is not preferred in this project.
Yeah, so one is time consumption, but the bigger, can anyone tell me what the bigger problem is?
Quota running out.
Correct. Your quota runs out because you're debugging something that's not related with the request itself, right? So keep this always in a separate block. Now, eventually when you have your application running, it won't be in a notebook like this, okay? I accept that. But when you're constructing the application, don't construct it in one big py file. To begin with, construct it piece by piece in a notebook so that you can debug various sections of it. And then once you are satisfied, hey, you know, this code works well now, then you can combine it all together into a .py file and then run your application in a single block of code. But until then, don't do that, okay? So now let's have a look at the status code, see if our request was successful. So it says it was successful. That's good. That's good news. So now let's see what we got back as a response. So response.json. So here is the first look at what went in. Okay. So we can see that it used the 4.0 model, and there are some various things here. And what we're interested in is what the message that came back. Okay. And this is this is the actual response. It says negative sentiment for this sentence. Please help us in solving the TDS project. Okay, so for some reason it thought that was a negative sentiment. Okay, then there are some other useful things here. You can see this usage over here. This tells how many tokens the prompt took. Okay, the prompt took 32 tokens. This prompt that we gave over here, this took 30. Sorry, this took actually. Not sure if it's this or this together. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So these two together, I think, took 32 tokens. Okay. Completion tokens is the response. So the word negative, now this should interest you. It's one word, but actually it took 2 tokens to make this response. And so total tokens was 34. And then what is very useful for you. So this prompt that we sent, right, cost us, so this is in dollars. 1/10,000th of a dollar is what this particular call cost us. Okay, I've done so far 7 requests on this particular key that I have, and you can see the total usage of my cost so far in these 7 requests. But that's what you get back as a response. So important things to remember: try and keep track of these 2 variables. Okay, whenever you're sending a call, track them, record them maybe in a file somewhere, so that you get a sense of, this is another thing that we have done in the past. Whenever we are making a large piece of code that uses the LLM, 2 things we record in a file. Okay, you all know how to use file output in Python, right? So I'm not going to show that at the moment. You just basically open a file, a text file. In the text file, store 3 things. The 3 things you want to store are: what was your prompt, and how many tokens, sorry, not how many tokens, and how much it cost you. And if you want, you can put the monthly cost. But if you put these two things, how much it cost you and what the prompt was, this will help you a lot later. Okay, it may seem silly at the moment, but when you're working on the project and you're doing a lot of things, you want to be as efficient as possible. So if you suddenly send a prompt and the output you got was huge, right? But it was valuable and it works and it does great, and you want that, then at least you have a record of the fact that, hey, this is the prompt I used. First of all, that's important, because sometimes we forget what prompt we used to get that exact output. So recording the prompts are useful, and then you can also know, okay, this much, how much it costs. So if it costs a lot of money, I'm not going to run this prompt again, but at least for future reference, if I want to again put it back in my program at the end, then I can put it back in. But record the prompts that you're doing, the useful prompts, of course. You can, of course, record the non-useful prompts as well, but you keep the ones that are useful, store it in a file. Okay, so that's some good tip for you guys. Okay, so this is how a basic API call is made. Any questions so far? It should be very easy from what
Can you
I've just
share
done.
this notebook file, please?
So okay, one more thing. We don't typically share the notebook file itself.
Okay.
Okay, the reason being, then you will not really get to grips with it. So that's why we don't share the notebook file. But there is a notebook file available. It is, so if you go this one, if you go here, this file is available for you to look at. Okay.
Anything which has a sample usage, that's all.
So this is similar to what we did. This does some other things. So this looks at the models, for example. So that's why it's hitting the models section. And then over here, what they've done is they have looked at reviews of a movie in Pandas data frame, and then they're trying to get the sentiment of the movies, okay, using LLMs. And again, you can see a similar thing has been done, but this is sometimes difficult to understand when there's lots going on. So that's why I showed you the very basic of how to construct it. Okay. The next thing I want to show you is parsing. This is easy. Okay. So another thing you really ought to do is when you're passing the response, this is a quick and easy way to pass the response. So you go response.json, and then as you can see, it's a dictionary key pair. So what we want, for example, is the choices. So then we do choices. And then in choices, okay, before I do that, let's just do this. So you can see, okay, this is choices. Now you can see that choices is an array. So we can say 0. Now you can see we want message. So then you can do message. Okay. And then in message, you can see you want content. Okay. So now you can do content. Oops, content. And ultimately you get the actual response you want, right? So why is this useful? In your project, this is effectively what will be happening. Later on, when we show you function calling, you will be, someone will send your LLM, or rather your code, a prompt, okay, a task to run, and it will come in this form of sentence like this. And then your LLM will have to decide which function to call, okay. But a function call has a specific name, right? If you remember making functions in Python, you'll have define some function, okay, and it will do something, right? Okay, your function call will do something, and so when you want the LLM to run a specific function, it should know exactly what function to call, right? So that's why you need to get back the exact response, not this whole bunch of stuff here. So remember that parsing it in this format will help you achieve that. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind.
You can use even JQ also.
You can use whatever you're comfortable with. There's no restrictions. We don't care how your internals work. If you're happy with the JavaScript, use JavaScript. If you're comfortable with Python, use Python.
Yeah,
Because
no,
most
JQ,
people
JQ is a command line. You can just use a command line JQ.
Okay, I'm not familiar with JQ, so
Yeah, you don't have to write even a script line also, like just
okay,
query lines. Yeah.
sure. But remember, at the end of the day, it should run in your application, right? The output, whatever you want for project, should work there. The next thing is right. So that was about how to send a simple prompt. This is okay. So the next aspect I want to talk to you about is there is various types of training that you can do to your LLM. Okay. So when you want to train it to do something, you can do either what's called one-shot training, or you can do multi-shot training, or you can do zero-shot training. So there are various sorts of things. Okay. So zero-shot training means no training, you just do it. Okay. And that's what we did over here. There was no training involved, it just did it. But in one-shot training, we give it an example. And here you can say, see an example of giving it the LLM some idea of what you expect. So there was a review, and if you look at here, there are 4 messages here. I don't know if this is very visible. Yeah. Okay. There are 4 messages here, and we wanted to break down the reviews into the acting, the storyline, and the direction. And then the other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to get a sense of what this review was for us. Okay. So we said, okay, after watching, you'll be hooked, etc., etc. I mean, it's got all this information in here, all that review has been put there. And this is where we put our analysis of it. Okay. We say, yeah, acting we say is good, storyline we say is good, direction is good. So this is something we give to the LLM. So the LLM understands that this kind of review, this is how we rate it. Okay. So based on this, we have now trained the LLM to understand that these kind of reviews should get this kind of feedback, like that its storyline is good, direction is good, that sort of thing. So this has been trained now on a sample of 1. And then we ask it, okay, now you go ahead and do the same thing. So now you give it another review, and then it gives you its response based on the example you have given it. Okay. So this is kind of like prompt engineering, but it's done in an API style. So that's what aspect-based sentiment is, or in particular, this is how you train LLMs to do certain things or behave a certain way, instead of it choosing how to behave by itself. So that's another aspect. Okay. Now, so far, these have been very sort of what you call noddy examples. Okay. Not very particularly useful, but still has some value. This next example that is shown here, which is extraction, this is where LLMs really come into its own in terms of its abilities. Okay. Normally, when you're calling functions in a program, you want structured output to come from unstructured input. So, for example, I know this particular one is not a very good example, but here is a way of structuring your output from an LLM. So here a prompt was given, and this is the question that was asked, but we want the response back, and this is the key part. Okay, so first we had models and messages, everything is the same, but this is the extra bit. So I'll just put it in the VS Code here so you can just see it properly. Okay, so if you look on here, this extra bit, okay, that's what comes in here. So you got the payload as models and messages, but it'll also have this response format. Okay, and inside response format, these are non-negotiables. Okay, this tells you want it back in JSON, So it won't come in the form of a long piece of text. It'll come exactly out as a JSON. Then you describe the JSON schema itself, okay? And then in the JSON schema, I don't know, this is better or that is better. Maybe this is better. Okay, so in the JSON schema itself, you give it a name. This is again required. So when you say strict true, it should not deviate from this scheme that you have given it. In other words, it should not suddenly create its own key value pairs, okay, and not hallucinate a different structure. So that's why this is very important, okay. So you say strict equal to true, and then you describe the schema that it's supposed to respond back to you in. So again, it's got to be of a type object. These are the properties of this object, and these are the properties is it has something called steps. Steps is a type of array. The array has some items. Each of these items is an object, and each of these objects have these properties. Okay, this is basic JSON construction schema. Okay, and if I'm going a bit fast, and if you didn't understand, just you can say it's to slow down. Okay, but I'm assuming you're understanding. That's why there's no sound from you guys. Okay, so the type array has items. Items have objects. These objects have this property. The property is there is a key called explanation and there's a key called output. The explanation key is of type string and the output is of type string. Okay, and they are both required. So that's why we put this key over here saying they are both required. And then additional properties false. This is also a required key. Okay, don't miss this out. You will get errors if you don't have this. And then if you look back at the schema, which had steps. Okay, one of the things it had was steps, but it also has a final answer. Okay, so there's steps and there's final answer. We want this API call to this question to give us the steps and to give us the final answer. And so the final answer is also of a type string, and the steps are of a type array, and the array have explanation and an output, and they're both required. And then when we go to the outer part, here also you will see we want both the steps and the final answer. And then again we add additional properties equal to false, and this completes the response format of the schema. Oops. Oh, actually it's explained over here as well. Sorry, I didn't notice. But if you go through this, right, it may take some time for you to get to grips with, but understand how this structure works, okay? Because this is a very basic construction. Why I'm saying this is important is in your project, this will be required when you start doing function calls. Okay, we have not talked about function calling. It will take, I think function calling will most likely take at least an hour to demonstrate and discuss with you. So next session, we will certainly talk about function calling. We will not be able to do it tonight, but at least understand how the schema works. And this helps you then get back a structured output in the form of a JSON schema for the application that you are using. Okay. Base 64 encoding, I'll not talk about it today. Again, vision models is exactly the same as the previous one. There's a role, there's a content, there are some extra details that you require to do in case you're parsing images. The other thing to remember is, although here they have sent a URL, you can actually send a proper image to the API, but you would have to send it in the form of a base 64 encoded URI, it's called. Okay, I'll explain that next time how you do that. Basically what it does is it takes your image and it converts it into a string of characters. So even though your image is made up of pixels and dots and colors and all sorts of things. It splits it up into 6-bit values, and then it produces a chunk of 24 bits. And then those 24 bits, it encodes it into another form, which basically are represented by ASCII characters. And those ASCII characters are A to Z. So your entire image, which were in the form of pixels and colors and all sorts of things, get represented as A to Z and 0 to 9 and plus and hash and plus and dash /. That's how you convert it. And once it's converted, then you can send it to your API, because how else can you upload the image, right? You have to send it in some form, some representation of your image. So base64 encoding is how we send it to the API. And then once you send an image, you can do all sorts of very cool processing. The same things you're seeing with GPT, right? You send an image of, say, one great example is, I've seen students do this and I've done it myself. When you get your your quiz one answer key is there, right? And they've given you some options. And instead of waiting for the session to get your answer as to why this is the correct answer, just upload the screenshot of that question from your quiz and ask the LLM, and it will then look at that and tell you what is the right answer and why it is the right answer. So how do you do that with an API? You send it a base64 encoded URI. Okay. But we will not, I'll not talk about how to do that today. I'll show it to you next session or the session afterwards. Okay. Embeddings is another important topic in LLMs. This has to do with what I was speaking about earlier. The fact that tokens are represented by matrices, tokens are represented by vectors, and how this can be valuable to us is something that is very important for us to cover. Tokens themselves are costly. If you are able to use embeddings directly, you will reduce the cost by an order of 10. So, instead of spending $100 on some sort of processing, you will be able to do it for $10, for example, or you may be able to do it for $1. And that's by leveraging the fact that these embeddings are freely available to us. You can download these embeddings from Hugging Face for almost any model that is out there. You just need a machine that's able to parse these vectors. And so we will demonstrate that in a future session. Okay, so embeddings has to do with the fact that tokens are represented by vectors, and how we use them we will show in the next class. Topic modeling, vector databases, retrieval augmented, yeah, so there's quite a lot, but this will be the most important thing, function calling. And that's why I don't want to start on it today, because the session is almost over. But if you get time, things to go over: text extraction, go over the initial setup, try some few API calls. You can even try some vision models and base64 encoding, because it is in one of your GAs. And at least try and watch this video on function calling. We'll also do a working example of function calling. In fact, we will use last term's project 2 to show you an example of function calling. And then when we actually do the prototype for this term's project, we will be using function calling extensively. Function calling, just to give you a quick overview. So remember I showed you messages and these sorts of things that we send to the API. So also there are tools that you send. Okay, you send it a set of tools, and these tools are nothing but functions. And these functions have a name, just like a normal function does. So you can see here, this has got get balance, this has got calculate bonus, performance bonus. These are various functions, and the API has to call these functions based on your prompt that you give. Okay, and so that's what function calling is about: how to construct these, and how your API actually interacts with the user, and then calls the right functions, which then does something valuable for you. in your project is what we will be discussing next time. But if you get a chance, at least watch the video of function calling so you get a sense of how it works, and then we will do a working example of it next time. So anything, any questions you guys have at the moment? Yes, Anand.
Hey, so what I was telling is, for example, there are few topics mentioned over there: prompt engineering, TDS, TA instructions, LLM sentiment analysis. If we will simply go through, like while we are doing self study, will I be able to get some of the idea like what we are trying to refer?
Yes, you will get. I mean, this content is very good. Okay. I mean, as far as these are concerned, these are just showing you how we are using it in our own workflows.
This is really really good content. Like, this is very simplified. This is
because reading through documentation is very difficult. So that's why we've taken all this effort to put this together for you. So it's well worth it. Okay. But don't worry, we will also demonstrate. We will also teach it and do some working examples as well. So you can get to grips with it. Yes, Auntie Manas.
Carlton, while explaining the first question in the LLM part, we saw that you use some parts of the token. So, does all the questions in this thing will take some costing to solve, like from the tokens?
So in the GA itself, you will hardly use it. I think most of the questions can be solved without using the token. But there are a couple of questions where you would need it. But for the project, yeah, definitely you will end up using tokens. But I would encourage you to practice. See, today is 28th, okay? If I were you in your place, right, I know it's going to be renewed on February 1st, right? Make maximum use of this time, 28, 29, 30, 31st, these 4 days. Use up the whole $1, okay? Or at least most of it, because it will be renewed at the beginning of February anyway. Because they don't accumulate, okay? $1 doesn't become 2. So use that to experiment and at least get a sense of how it works. And that will be very helpful for you. So that's why over the next, so tomorrow, day after, and probably on Friday and maybe Saturday, we'll have some extra sessions, and we'll extensively deal with this LLMs, because it's very important for you to get a good grasp of how to use it and how to make it work in your workflows. So this is really the heart of the whole TDS, I would say, using smart agents and using it in your workflow. May I ask a question which I mentioned earlier? Okay. Well, Jivraj, are you there?
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Can you take queries from, I think it was Arnav was asking.
Yeah, sir.
Go ahead, Arnav.
Okay, sir. May I share my screen?
Sure, no.
Okay, sir. Sir, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Sir, see, I am having this issue. Actually, here it's running,
Yes.
and my code is also running.
Yes.
I have just stopped it. Sir, look at this. But when I paste it here, it says this.
You don't have to pass these these parameters. So just pass the detail.
Sir, sorry, I can't hear you.
Hello, am I audible?
Jivraj,
Yes,
your
sir.
voice is not really clear.
So I think what he was trying to say is don't pass the parameters, only
Yeah.
pass the API itself.
Just remove from that question mark. Use the remove in the answer. In the answer, remove from that question mark. Yeah, just remove that. That's it. Outright out.
Oh my God.
That's it.
Okay.
The thing is
Yeah.
actually, you see in the right, you see there, the bottom, it's using
Yes, sir.
course to send it there, like in the bottom terminal. You see that?
Yes, sir.
If you
Yes,
have
sir.
Postman, you can just use that, okay? And then
Okay,
that's how
sir.
you can do it, okay? So you can
Okay,
even
sir.
test it locally also. Most of the apps using core only here, course. So yeah, good.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
I have one question. Is that okay to ask now? Actually, like I just am new to this. Like I've submitted these answers, but I do not know. Like for this thing, it has a different way. Can I ask it quickly? Like if I
Sure.
can I
Arnav,
share?
do you have some other doubt?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just I wanna. Minute, um. You see, for this one, I don't get any here. Like I just want to know if I've done it correct or not. Like um. So here we submit this. That is all actually. Like should we do anything else? Like I mean, usually that's all actually. Like I've been doing. Like how do you do that actually? Like here there is
Okay.
nothing to submit here. Like you just say yes.
Yeah. So you just say yes here, and then you need to submit through the URL that is there.
So this will only pick up.
Yeah, it will become.
But why is it not reflecting?
I think they haven't pushed the scores.
Okay, then that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah, that is all actually. Like the remaining, anyways, the doubts will be cleared in the next session. Right? Yeah, thank you.
Jivraj, I have a question if you can answer.
Sure.
It's about the sessions. Is the week two part of the course completely covered in the sessions?
Hmm. Oh, you're
Thank you.
asking if week two part is completely covered in the session.
Yes, like in week one, we went through all the different parts. Like that is the week two completely covered out.
Actually, yes, it is completely covered out, but the way we have covered is a bit different. So in week two, we have uh, gone through the important things that were required. So, for example, we exactly haven't discussed the questions, but those things which were actually required, we need to discuss. We had discussed those things. For example, we had discussed GitHub Actions. So, I think most of those things we have discussed.
So referring to the past sessions will give me the concise idea of the important parts of the GA2,
On G2.
week two.
So,
Jivraj, your voice is like completely muffled out. It's not coming clearly only.
oh, uh, is it someone else is taking nearby me? That's why I'm speaking a bit low. Okay. So what I was saying is it okay now? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So what I was saying, we have covered GitHub Actions and then we have also covered Docker images, how do you upload that, and then uh, I let me just open what is running GA2 and what we have covered. So yeah, we have also covered the deployment part of it, how you can uh, use ngrok and how you can deploy it on Vercel as well. And we have covered the fast API creation part as well. So I think these are the four important parts which are there in GA2.
Sir, your voice is very much low. It is not clear.
Wait a second, I will change my location and I think I will join through mobile version.
Jivraj, sorry for interrupting. I got the concise idea of what you're trying to say. So if it's all right, I like you have cleared my doubt essentially. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, I have a doubt in GA 1, that is question 10 and 11. I've also posted that doubt on Discourse, but haven't got any reply on that.
Okay, what is your doubt in 10?
Sir, in question 10, we have that hash button which we have to use to convert the JSON file. I've converted the JSON file in the given format, but the hash button is showing error again and again, which I could not recognize. I've posted that question. Actually, I've joined from tab and I'm not at my home. So that's why I couldn't join right now with the laptop and show you that. But I've posted that error on Discourse form. And in question 11, sir, the statement which is telling me that below element in which CSS, the whole code has to be run, I didn't get what the question is saying. Uh, that's why I couldn't solve that question. I didn't get the question. I've confused in the question.
Oh,
Yes, sir. This one.
this is the one. Actually, someone had replied to it that you have to first convert it to JSON. So this is E should be C and then this MSAC5Z 5K. This should be a value. So I will just show JSON format example. So what it is saying, you have to create object. It's kind of dictionary only, and then you must have key over here, and then value should be this thing, whatever it is.
Okay, sir. So we have to use inverted double quotes
Yeah,
for key and for the value as well.
yes, yes.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Now I get it, sir. That's why I'm getting the error. And sir, in question 11, that is,
Okay, yeah, this is the one.
yes, sir. In this, the it is telling me what's the that is class in the hidden element below. The what does this line mean? That I'm not getting. I've done.
So below this particular section, there should be a hidden element. What
Sir,
I'm
at which position do you did you right click the and go to the inspect? That is,
I just do right click and then
yes,
inspect,
sir, inspect. But
and
sir,
then
I didn't get any class named as foo, which is in the question given.
So this one, this is hidden element with data value and the name. So this is the one which you had to select, and then within this, I think there must be so these are the classes. This two.
Yes, sir. So data values, yes, sir, 35. And okay, sir. Now I get it, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Anyone else have any doubt?